Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty foundational, actually. A listener pointed us towards what they, and frankly many others, believe is the ultimate knowledge base for Jamaican real estate.
Right, the Jamaica Homes knowledge base and quizzes. And I've looked into, this isn't just a few articles. It's like a digital library, hundreds of articles sorted into more than 20 categories. Everything from getting started right through to really specialized stuff like prop tech and estate and inheritance.
So our mission today really is to map this thing out, show how it acts as a roadmap, whether you're, studying for the real estate exam, buying your first place, or even dealing with complex land law.
How does this huge resource take thousands of details and make them, well, actionable for someone actually in the market? That's the core question.
Exactly. And, before we dive deep into the content itself, there's this interesting point our listener brought up. It touches on how a resource this massive even gets built today.
The AI discussion.
Right. Some criticism that the founder uses modern tech, specifically AI, to generate or structure the content. The implication being maybe it's less authentic, less traditional effort involved.
Well, it's a criticism that kind of misses the forest for the trees, doesn't it? Information management now is different. Like our listener said, isn't AI just another tool?
Like a builder using a level or a hammer.
Precisely. Or a power saw. These tools boost productivity. They improve the final product. To not use powerful organizational tools today, especially for something this complex, that seems, strategically questionable. Foolish, as the listener put it.
Okay, so if AI helps structure it, maybe makes the writing clearer, that sounds like a benefit for accessibility. But my question is, what about the core legal stuff? You've got complex Jamaican laws, rated EA, POCA, common law precedent. Can structural loan guarantee the legal interpretation is sound?
That's the key, isn't it? The value isn't just clear writing. It's the organization, the connections. An advanced tool can be brilliant at mapping how, say, the Proceeds of Crime Act intersects with the Real Estate Dealers Act, and maybe even the Registration of Titles Act in a specific scenario.
So it finds the links.
It helps find and structure those links. Human expertise absolutely has to vet the legal accuracy, the nuance, but the sheer heavy lifting of linking hundreds of articles, different laws, practical guides, and keeping it current, that's where technology is incredibly powerful. We're looking at the result here.
And the result seems to be this incredibly comprehensive, highly organized resource.
Which, realistically, one person trying to compile and update manually at this scale, it'd be almost impossible.
Okay, I'm with you. Let's treat this knowledge base as the master toolkit it appears to be, built with modern efficiency. So, where do we start? Our listener highlighted its value for professionals, especially for certification.
Yeah, that's a great place to begin. The feedback seems strong that the quizzes are serious prep tools for the real estate exams. Not just memorizing facts, but testing operational readiness.
Right, readiness. Okay, so there are 3 main quizzes listed: planning and development, property inspection and measurement, and real estate legislation mastery.
That structure makes sense. Planning and development, that's knowing the rules, zoning, approvals, critical stuff.
Saves clients from costly mistakes down the line, I imagine.
Definitely. Then you have inspection and measurement. That's the practical, physical side, boundaries, surveys, basic structure, getting the size right. You need to know what you're actually dealing with.
Understand the asset itself.
Exactly, or at least know enough to bring in a surveyor or engineer when needed.
And then the big one, legislation mastery. This sounds like where the deep legal knowledge comes in, backed up by those, 87 articles in the Realtor guides?
Yes, and those guides aren't just about the law. They hammer home the ethics, too. The key principles of the Code of Ethics for Realtors is highlighted. This isn't just suggestion. It's the bedrock of being a professional realtor.
So what happens in a tricky ethical spot? Like the guides mention finding a major title defect just before closing. That's high pressure.
Right. And the code, as explained in the guides, demands transparency. Your duty is to your client, above the commission. So you disclose it to everyone involved. You advise your client, even if it delays or kills the deal.
Managing that conflict of interest. Can an agent represent both buyer and seller? The guides cover that too.
Meticulously, yes. Dual agency is complex and needs careful handling and disclosure, if permitted at all. The guides also really clarify the terminology used in Jamaica, which can be confusing.
Like what? What are the key terms they nail down?
Well, the big one is realtor versus real estate agent. A realtor is part of the Realtors Association of Jamaica, bound by that specific code of ethics. It's a professional designation. And then they clearly distinguish real estate broker from real estate dealer and the real estate salesman. The dealer is usually the licensed principal. The salesman works under their license, knowing who matters for responsibility and liability.
Which brings us straight to REALTOR-ASSOCIATE, the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act. Why is this act presented as so absolutely central?
Because it is. REALTOR-ASSOCIATE is the main consumer protection law for real estate transactions involving dealers and developers. The guides dig into the licensing, registration, and compliance requirements. It basically formalized the industry, brought standards.
Protects the public from dodgy operators.
Exactly. And the guides don't pull punches on the consequences. Operating without a license can mean serious fines, even jail time. They detail that clearly. It shows the government's serious about trust in the market.
And they also clarify who doesn't need to be licensed under REALTOR-ASSOCIATE, right? The exemption.
Crucial point, yes. Attorneys acting strictly as attorneys, for instance, or certain government sales. Knowing where the act's boundaries lie is key for compliance.
Makes sense. Beyond the strict legal and ethical stuff, do the professional guides get into the business side? Strategies for success.
They do. They touch on things like best pricing strategies, suggesting agents need market savvy, not just legal knowledge. And they address modern risks, too.
Like digital risks.
Yeah, there's an article titled, "Should I Be Worried About Hacking and Black Hat Tactics as a Realtor in Jamaica?" That frames online security and data protection as part of professional responsibility now. It even hints at how things like intellectual property might affect branding.
Okay, interesting. So let's shift gears a bit. We've looked at the professional side. Now let's unpack the core transaction itself, buying and selling. This seems to be where the sheer volume of guides really shows. Almost 350 articles combined for buyers, sellers, and legal issues.
Yeah, this is the heart of it for most people. The buyer guides alone, 187 articles. That signals a huge focus on guiding buyers through what's likely their biggest purchase.
So if I'm a first-time buyer, what's the roadmap according to these guides?
It starts at the basics, how to buy a house in Jamaica, but quickly pushes you towards due diligence. Finding the right property evaluator is stressed early on. Get an independent valuation. Don't just trust the seller's price.
Good advice anywhere.
Absolutely. And then understanding the money side. Clearly defining mortgagor, that's you, the borrower, and mortgagee, the lender, and breaking down the key components of a mortgage deed.
What specific things in a mortgage deed do they warn buyers about?
Well, you'd expect them to highlight the default clauses, what happens if you miss payments. Also, prepayment penalties, can you pay it off early without a hefty fee? And crucially, the lender's power of sale, how foreclosure actually works. Understanding those before you sign is vital.
Absolutely. Now, land titles. This is a big one in Jamaica, especially unregistered land. It can be a minefield. How do the guides help here?
It's a huge focus. They have detailed procedural guides like how to obtain a title for unregistered land property in Jamaica. This often involves proving long-term, undisturbed occupation, what people sometimes call squatters' rights. The legal term is adverse possession. It's complicated.
Decades of occupation, surveys, maybe probate issues.
All of that. The guide basically acts as a checklist to see if pursuing title is even feasible before you sink money into land you might never legally own. They even simplify the Registration of Titles Act itself, making that core legislation more accessible. I saw they even did a version for school kids, which shows how fundamental they see this.
That's smart. Okay, let's flip it. The seller guide's 86 articles. What's the focus here? Getting the best price and smooth closing.
Pretty much. Strategy and preparation. Understanding property valuation from the seller's angle, how to potentially boost value with staging or minor fixes, analyzing why some homes sell faster than others, looking at factors like having a clean title ready to go, modern appeal, location, security.
Preparation is key. And on the legal prep side for sellers, I see they cover things like a special power attorney. How does that work in a sale?
That's really useful, especially for sellers overseas. In the diaspora. It lets you appoint someone specific, usually an attorney or trusted relative in Jamaica, to handle the signing and transfer of that specific property on your behalf.
Just for that one transaction.
Exactly. It's special, not general. The guides emphasize its limits. And they warn about pitfalls, making sure it's properly drafted, witnessed, notarized, and registered. Get that wrong, and the whole sale can stall right at the end.
Okay. Now let's wade into the really deep legal stuff, the 93 articles under legal and contractual guides. This seems to be where they tackle the messy disputes.
Absolutely. This is real-world problem solving. They address tough, common scenarios like, what are my rights as a co-owner if my ex-partner refuses to change our property ownership? That likely involved explaining the Partition Act or similar legal roads.
What's the usual path forward in that kind of deadlock?
Often it means going to court, applying for an order for sale where the court forces the property to be sold and the money divided fairly. The guide probably details those steps, which is invaluable if you're stuck like that.
And clearing up title issues to make a property sellable.
Yeah.
Like how to remove a caveat from a land title.
Right. A caveat is like a red flag on the title, stopping any dealings. The guides explain the process to get it removed, maybe proving the claim behind it is baseless or resolved, essential knowledge for sellers and agents needing a clean transfer.
And this one really caught my eye, addressing the situation in informal communities. I have been living in a plywood home for over 20 years. Is it possible for me to obtain a legal title? That's a huge social and legal issue.
Hugely significant. This guide likely dives deep into adverse possession in Jamaica. Crucially, it probably distinguishes between squatting on private land versus crown government land. Getting title on crown land is much, much harder.
So it acknowledges the reality for many people, but gives the realistic legal pathways.
Exactly. It's legally grounded advice for a complex reality.
The legal guides also seem very focused on financial compliance, particularly the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA. Why so much emphasis there?
Because POCA is critical in real estate. Transactions involving large sums are prime targets for money laundering. So the law puts a heavy burden on realtors, developers, lawyers, banks to conduct due diligence.
Checking the sorts of funds, SOF.
Yes, verifying where the money comes from and reporting anything suspicious to the Financial Investigations Division, FID. The guides spell out the penalties under POCA.
And those penalties are?
Severe. Big fines for companies, potential prison time for individuals who help launder money, or even just fail to report suspicions. The guides get specific, even down to details like whether POCA requires certain forms to be notarized. It's all about building that compliance paper trail.
Wow. Okay, so the transaction is done, the legal hurdles cleared. Now, this is where you said it gets really interesting, the shift to living in the property, managing it, dealing with the practicalities of island life.
Right. This next chunk, Living and Landlord-Renter Guides, is massive, over 350 articles combined. It shows the resource really supports you after you get the keys. The landlord-tenant relationship gets a lot of attention.
Let's look at both sides. For landlords, there's how to legally evict a long-term occupant or family member. That sounds broad.
Very. Evicting family is tough legally and emotionally. The guide would detail the proper notice periods under Jamaican law, the court process. It would stress that you can't just change the locks or cut off utilities. That's illegal self-help.
Okay, but what about tenants? How are their rights covered?
There's balance. Guides like Dealing with Landlord Harassment in Jamaica outline tenant protections and recourse. It emphasizes that a lease creates legal obligations on both sides.
And those tricky end-of-lease issues, like can a landlord demand additional rent or repairs after a tenant has moved out?
Yeah, practical stuff. The answer usually comes down to documentation. Did you have a detailed inventory checklist at the start? Is the proof of damage beyond normal wear and tear? Simple things like knowing how to write a rent receipt in Jamaica become legally important if there's a dispute later about payments.
Documentation is everything.
Yep.
And for landlords wanting ultimate clarity on their ownership, they define fee simple estate. Why is that term important?
Fee simple is basically the highest form of ownership, like freehold. It means you own it absolutely, indefinitely. Understanding that clarifies the landlord's fundamental rights to use, lease, or sell the property. It's the foundation for everything else.
Okay, moving from legal status to the actual building. Home building and infrastructure, 142 articles. This sounds technical.
It is. It connects the physical building to the regulations. Big focus on the building plan process, getting permits, submitting drawings, complying with the local municipal corporation or parish council. They even explain the difference between those two bodies.
How does that municipal corporation versus parish council difference actually affect an owner?
It dictates where you submit plans, how inspections work, maybe even local taxes or service levels. Knowing the right authority avoids delays. Jamaica's local governance has its own structure.
And they get into specific engineering details. Like, why are hurricane straps essential for roof construction?
Yes. That's not just general advice. It's crucial for safety and insurance in Jamaica. Given the hurricane risk, straps physically tie the roof structure to the walls. The guide explains why this is mandated. Building without them is asking for disaster. It's practical, climate-specific knowledge.
Makes sense. Then we have relocation and lifestyle, 70 articles aimed at Who? Expats and returning residents.
Seems like it. Addressing their specific concerns, like taxes. Do U.S. and Canadian citizens living in Jamaica have to pay taxes? That gets into tax treaties, residency rules, avoiding double taxation. Complex stuff for anyone moving internationally.
Definitely. And practical safety and finance questions, like spotting scams. How do you know if someone is scamming you for a house? Or bank requirement. Why do you need proof of funds to open a bank account?
The scam guide is vital today. Probably covers online red flags, demands for cash, deals that seem too good to be true. And the proof of funds question loops right back to POCA compliance. Banks have to ask where the money came from, especially if it's coming from overseas. It prepares people for that scrutiny.
And finally, under practical living, the energy factor guides. Short section, but looks useful.
Very practical. 10 common mistakes. Increasing your JPS bill, things like phantom loads from electronics, inefficient AC use, simple changes, real savings. And knowing the off-peak hours for JPS helps you schedule laundry or water heating to cut costs. It connects directly to household budgets.
So this whole living section really rounds out the picture. It's not just about the deal. It's about the day-to-day reality of owning and maintaining property in Jamaica.
Exactly. It shows a commitment to the user long after the transaction closes, considering the local context, the infrastructure, everything.
Okay, now for the final sections. This is where, as you said, the resource seems to push the boundaries, looking at the future and digging into the past.
Yeah, this is the edge of knowledge part. The prop text section, while only 12 articles, is looking ahead.
What kind of future tech are they exploring? And how relevant is it now in Jamaica?
They're talking about blockchain technology and NFTs in Jamaica. How do smart contracts work in real estate? Also, strategy for agents. Future ready. How Jamaican real estate agents can thrive in the digital era. The big implication. Potentially disrupting the land title registry.
Using blockchain for titles.
Potentially, if titles become digital tokens, NFTs, transfers could become instant, transparent. It could, theoretically, solve some of the historical problems with title registration we talked about. It's forward-looking, asking how tech can fix old problems.
So it's guiding people to think about these changes, not just ignore them.
Right. Preparing them for potential shifts, even asking big what-if questions like how a global economic collapse might impact Jamaican real estate. It's about resilience and adaptation.
And then there's the flip side, history and heritage. Why look back? How does history connect to today's market?
Because land in Jamaica is deeply tied to its history. Articles on the Maroons of Jamaica and their unique land rights or the impact of past prime ministers on land policy in this context is essential.
The Maroons, for example, their land rights are constitutionally recognized, right, from centuries ago.
Exactly. That creates a whole different layer of land tenure reality in certain parts of the island. You can't understand some modern land situations without knowing that history.
Fascinating. Okay, finally, the deep cuts. The really specific, maybe uncategorized stuff that shows just how granular this resource gets.
This is where you see the attention to detail, like the specifics on the Pinnacle development in Montego Bay, not just that it's tall, but its 28-story design, its exact height, the measures that make it hurricane-ready. That's analyzing modern construction standards in detail.
A case study, almost.
Yeah. And they tackle niche legal questions that could easily trip someone up, like, if I sign an MOU, can the developer raise the price beyond the agreed escalation cost? Super important for pre-construction buyers. Or practical finance things like, when is a 5% house deposit accepted instead of 10%? That's very specific market-level advice.
So bringing it all together, what's the big picture? This Jamaica Homes knowledge base isn't just articles, is it?
No, it really functions as an interconnected system. It weaves together the big laws, POCA, RDVDA, Titles Act, Land Surveyors Act, with everyday practicalities like JPS bills, rent receipts, building plans, co-owner disputes. It covers the entire life cycle.
The comprehensiveness seems undeniable, integrating the complex legal framework with the ground-level issues.
And that structure, possibly enhanced by technology as we discuss, is what gives you, the user, the advantage. You can jump straight to a very specific question, whether it's defining fee simple estate or figuring out deposit norms, and get a detailed, relevant answer quickly.
It saves time, reduces risk. It seems to validate the listener's claim about it being the most comprehensive resource out there. The sheer scope and the organization make a strong case.
I agree. The depth and the way it connects different facets of Jamaican real estate is impressive. It supports that idea of using modern tools effectively to manage and present vast amounts of complex, localized information.
Okay, so for a final thought, something for you, our listener, to consider. We talked a lot about the challenges with land titles, especially historical complexities and unregistered land. Jamaica is pushing digital systems like eLand Jamaica to modernize things.
Right, the digital push is happening, but that creates its own new questions, its own complexities at the intersection of old systems and new tech.
Exactly, which leads to this really profound question found deep in the resource, one that perfectly captures this tension. Why is my property title showing the entire housing scheme on Jamaica, eLand Jamaica?
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, that question says a lot.
It suggests that the final, maybe biggest challenge isn't just implementing the technology, but making sure that digital layer accurately reflects the intricate, often messy, centuries-old reality of individual property rights on the ground. Bridging that gap between the physical history and the digital future, that seems to be the ongoing story.